Maya Kowalski is a young woman who has had a painful life. It started in 2015 when she was just 9 years old. She began experiencing asthma attacks and headaches. Lesions formed on her legs and arms, and her feet began to cramp. Doctors had difficulty diagnosing her condition. At one point, one doctor suggested it was all in her head. Then, finally, a doctor told her family about a rare neurological condition that can cause her symptoms of constant pain. It's called CRPS, Complex Regional Pain Syndrome. To treat her excruciating pain, her family went to Mexico for a ketamine treatment not approved in the United States. It worked, but she would still have flare-ups. That's when she went to Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. Maya's mom and dad explained her condition and treatment, but the hospital pushed back, accusing Maya's mom of having Munchausen by proxy. The hospital reported the case to Family Services, and Maya was separated from her mom and dad and isolated in the hospital for months, not getting the treatment she needed. Her mother became so distraught about what was happening, she took her own life, leaving a detailed note, hoping it would save her daughter. Now, Maya's family is suing the hospital, and tonight we will speak with someone who suffers from the same condition as Maya, and someone who had her children taken away from her because of the actions of the same caseworker. All this as we investigate the painful life of Maya Kowalski.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us on Closing Arguments. This case is tragic on so many different levels and seemingly extremely preventable as well. Personally, I think it was a matter of egos getting in the way, but we'll see. This is the trial we're showing you, one of the trials we're showing you on Court TV right now. We're calling it the Take Care of Maya trial. Netflix documentary about what she has gone through, what her family has gone through, and now they're suing Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital for their alleged role in the pain and the suffering that this family has endured. Now, there was an accusation against Maya's mother, who was doing anything and everything she could to try to help her daughter, that she was harming Maya. Now think about this. Put yourself in the shoes of a parent. Many of you are. And you've got a child that is screaming in pain. And you go to doctor after doctor after doctor, and nobody can figure it out. And then finally, you find someone who understands it, can diagnose it, and you get the treatment, and your daughter is not suffering like she was, and you know exactly how to treat her condition when it flares up and she's suffering like no 9-year-old child should suffer. And she knows that. And then you go to a hospital and they're like, no, we got it here. No, what kind of treatment are you talking about? And then you accuse her of like medically giving her unnecessary medicine and trying to harm her when all she was trying to do was save her daughter from suffering, her child. And this is where the ego comes in from my perspective. It's from personal experience. It's from personal experience. Sometimes when you're dealing, I have amazing doctors. I say this all the time. I'm type 1 diabetic. Amazing doctors that have helped me. But I've bumped into some others. I think maybe you have too. They don't hear you. They don't listen to you because they know everything. They know everything. And it's a problem. The best doctors I've ever had are the ones that listen. And there are so many that do, and nurses as well, and social caseworkers is also. But then there are others who just think they know what's going on. They make up their mind, they put blinders on. They don't want to hear from anyone else. Here's the problem. And when she went in, did they even understand what Maya was suffering from, CRPS? Were they familiar with it? It's rare. So not everyone's going to understand it. I get it. That's why we have specialists in the medical field. You break your leg, you're not going to an eye doctor. Yeah, doctor might have some idea about what to do from medical school, but like, he's not going to do it or she's not going to do it. But the fact that they didn't understand what was wrong with the child and they could not properly treat her to reduce her suffering, they turn that around and separate this suffering child from her family. And it begs the question, which is always the legal standard when you're trying to take a child from their family, or what's going to happen to a child when the state or the judicial system intervenes. What's in the best interest of the child? What's in the best interest of the child? And that is a serious, serious responsibility for any caseworker, anyone investigating the case, any judge that has to make that decision. But you can't have blinders on when you do that. You've got to look at the whole child. And like, what's in the best interest? At what point is taking a suffering child away from her parents in the best interest? Well, here they thought, well, mom's the one that's harming her. Really? Really? Did you do the full investigation? Did you fully understand her condition? Or did you make up your mind early and let your ego get in the way? That's just my gut, what my gut is telling me from what we've seen, heard so far. The jury will make the decision in the trial that's here on Court TV. Now, Maya and her family, not the only ones who've had issues with the caseworker that works the cases out of this hospital. She's got a little bit of a history and I think some problems in her past. One person you're going to speak to in just a few minutes as she's joining us tonight. Saisha's her name. She's a singer. She's a songwriter, American Idol. You may very well recognize her as well. She posted a video on Instagram. She has 2 young children, and this caseworker intervened. And take a look at what happens on the roadside. Keep in mind, this baby is just days old.
We have the medical. She just was seen yesterday.
Well,
last
night. Yeah, we have. Here's the order. Here's all the. You guys are going to go to the office if you want to be interviewed by this young lady right here. She's going to be responsible for that.
What is she going to eat?
Case management.
Yeah, she's breastfed.
Take your child to the hospital. Here's all the correct paperwork. Okay. That's fine. She can do that in our office.
So wrong, Sarah.
You don't feel nothing?
Do you not feel anything?
Let's put the baby in the
You guys, I'm human. This is my baby. My baby is days old. And you're taking my baby away from me.
I mean, you look at this scene, it's like they're dealing with like an Amber Alert, and there's been a child abduction. I mean, this is insanity. By the way, they had a lawyer, I believe, at the time, and we're doing this? What is going on here? I don't understand it. But we will understand it. Take a listen to the press conference that Saisha had talking about what happened here.
This is my first time being a mom. And I've been deprived of holding my babies and feeding my babies. I didn't get to see Ra say mama for the first time. And I didn't get to see my babies meet for the first time. I didn't get to see that, and I can't go back and redo that moment. I'll never be able to go back and redo that moment. And I'm just missing out on so many precious moments. This is such a precious time. Like, I feel my daughter. I feel when she's hungry. I know when she's crying. And I can't do anything. She's not here with me. And I'm supposed to be comforting her. I'm supposed to be loving my babies. I'm supposed to be outside with them and building experiences. And Ra's supposed to be playing his drum with us. And I've been deprived of that. And I don't know how to articulate it. But It hurt so bad.
Yeah, of course it hurt. That was back in 2021. I don't understand. We cover so many cases here at Court TV where you see these children that there's like a file opened with child services, and then they just kind of forget about the child, and the child is beaten. They're giving custody in another case recovering. They take the baby away from the mom without having the mom in court and give it to their career criminal father, who takes the baby to another state, ends up killing it, and killing the little child, and we've never even found the child. I mean, and then they do this with the family? All right. Let's bring in our guests. Joining me, child advocate, philanthropist, and American Idol finalist, Saisha. Also joining us tonight, Saisha's attorney, Derek J. McBurrows. Thank you both for being here. Saisha, now, I just showed this to everybody, and some people may have not seen this. Where are the children tonight?
The children are home with us, and we are just moving in so much gratitude and strength to have our children home with us. They're with us. Okay, so everyone can like exhale that's watching right now, right? Because they're like, yes. What happened here? So that's the good news. How did all this happen? Like, how is it that you have these children, you're a young mom, dad is there, the family's together, you got the car seats, you're doing everything. What happened here? You know what? My attorney can elaborate on more, but the basis of everything, even with the Maya case, and this message is to the world. There is a lack of love in our world. And when we don't know what love truly is in our hearts, we are not able to speak with love. And we are not able to comprehend with love and move in love. Because when you truly have love inside of your heart, you would never imagine to rip a child away from their mother's arms. That is something you would never imagine to do. So the reason is a lack of love. Dr. Sally Smith, CPI officer Danielle McCoy, there was a lack of love in their hearts. So I say to all the CPI officers, and I say to Dr. Sally Smith, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and you are loved. We need more love in this world. And that sort of thing, it would never happen. Very well articulated. Derek, let's talk about how this happens. Like, how do you get to the point where a car gets pulled over on the side of the road? On the side, it's like an Amber Alert, and we're ripping a child away from mom and dad.
And I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Benny. Thank you, me and Sly. The ultimate situation here was there was a misdiagnosis. When it comes to the hospital, there was a misdiagnosis as it relates to interpreting that two loving mothers can come to the hospital seeking help, seeking medical aid for their children, yet they're mischaracterized and demonized and ultimately separated unjustly from their children, who ultimately are suffering. That's why they came to the hospital to begin with. But to go back to your question, initially on the side of the road, the Manatee County Sheriff's Office was already made aware that the parents were fully intended on coming to the police station to voluntarily surrender the child. Yet they chose to make the misinformed decision to pull this family on the side of the road and make a public spectacle out of it. So further exasperating the harm that this family had to suffer. So Vinny, again, this is the case of a miseducation, misdiagnosis, and misapplication of the Florida law as it relates to doing what's in the best interest of the family.
And you mentioned Dr. Sally Smith. This is the caseworker that is involved in Maya's case as well. What is it? Is there any incentive built into the system? Because I covered another case out in California, the Cal City toddlers, these two wonderful little boys taken from their mom and then put into the foster care system and then like adopted out. They didn't even try to do reunification. Straight to the adopt out. Those two children were murdered by the adoptive parents. And there was a financial incentive for the county out there in California was getting money, all the children that they would get into foster care and then adopt out. There was like it was sick, really sick. And the parents, I mean, literally murdered the two children. So is there anything like that happening down here in all Johns in Saratoga County, Manatee County?
Well, Benny, that's another side part. Ultimately, both of these children, whether it's Maya or whether it was Amon Ra, both of them had rare conditions. So I believe that John Hopkins was receiving funds in some kind of capacity to conduct scientific research on these children. You know, ultimately to try to figure out how to treat this type of symptom. For example, with Maya, I heard the testimony of the father, very painful, very hard to listen to, but ultimately he had to give testimony about how even if you put a sheet on his daughter's legs, his daughter would scream in pain, ailing pain, and how hearing their child, you know, have that type of expression, you know, had a direct impact on the welfare and the mental well-being of their parents. You know what I mean? So again, it's very unfortunate to see what happened to both families. And to all children that are unfortunately, you know, being I can't even figure out the right terminology for it, but they're not being treated correctly by the system.
So, Saisha, after your experience, right, and it was so well stated by Derek about, you know, you go to a hospital, you're desperate, you're looking for help. You're looking for help because that's in the best interest of your child. Would you hesitate at this point after your experience to seek out help at a hospital, or have you lost any sense of trust, or where are you in all of that?
Well, one thing that I tell families is that we all have this intuitive intelligence that resides within us. So at any given moment, we're able to tap into that. So whatever you choose to do as a parent, that needs to be respected. Whether you're in a hospital, whether there's a nurse, whether there's a doula, whether there's a midwife, you know what is in the best interest of your child at all times. So we are the biggest advocates for our children. And so whether I choose to go to a hospital in the future or I don't choose to go to the hospital, I know that the most important thing is cultural competency, respect, and literally love. Just having that basic foundation of just love. And that is what is needed more in this world and also in hospitals.
Thank you both for joining us, and I know you've got the nonprofit Sing to the Children, which is amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. Derek McBurrows, appreciate your time, and I know Saisha and her family are in good hands with you, so thank you both. And do me a favor tonight, Saisha, give those kids a big hug from all of us here at Court TV.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you.
I will.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about the condition that Maya had, because we have a guest who has the same exact condition. Plus, coming up next hour.
In Palm Beach County, Florida, tension in the courtroom as the young boy who was kept inside a locked box in his family's garage takes the stand to testify against his father as his father watched him.
To me, being locked in a room, it's dehumanizing. It's almost as bad as genocide. It's saddening to abuse a child that was just acting like a child.
Florida father accused of locking his son in a box in the garage with a bed, a bucket, and a camera.
He was locked in a room for hours at a time.
Police say this abuse went unnoticed for years.
There are ring videos that the state provided of the child lying. He faces up to 40 years.
I'm not sure they're going to be able to justify it. What's going on in this house?
The Boy in a Box trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
is a powerful antagonist of NMDA receptors.
And so is this, could we call this resetting the brain?
Basically, that's what we're doing, resetting the brain to inhibiting those stimuli and those central changes.
That's Dr. Cantu, who was testifying today in the Take Care of Maya trial. He is the one who took care of Maya. He's the one who was providing the ketamine treatment to help her, save her from this excruciating pain. Let's take a listen to more of his testimony, because think about how desperate this family was. And then finally, you find someone, Dr. Cantu, who can help.
Did you conduct an examination of her post-procedures?
Así es. That's right.
How was her dystonia?
Almost resolved, practically.
And after the procedure, well, first, when she came in, was she having difficulty sitting upright? And after the procedure, could she sit upright?
Yes, she did have it, and even after the procedure, she would even visit all the patients that were in the hospital in similar procedures in her wheelchair. Within the next days, she showed a happy, smiling girl.
Okay, so Dr. Cantu from Mexico does not speak English. There was a translator, so we put the translator. That's why you didn't see his lips moving. The translator was saying what he had just said. Anyhow, ketamine was the treatment, and that was like the little trigger for the folks at Johns Hopkins and the caseworkers and everyone else that, oh my goodness, what is this treatment? This is crazy, this is radical. Mom, you are abusing this child. That's the allegation here. So let's find out more about CRPS and ketamine treatment, because we have a special guest giving us all that insight, Lindsay Corley, who suffers from CRPS. It's the same condition that Maya Kowalski was diagnosed with. Lindsay, great to see you.
Good to see you too, Vinny.
Yes, a very familiar face. So describe what it's like to have this and what you feel, and when you had it, the level the level of desperation to get a treatment, to figure out how to handle this.
Yes, so complex regional pain syndrome is considered the most painful condition known to man. And it feels like you're burning, if that makes sense. I have it in the back of my head. And so the only way I know how to describe it is someone just literally took an iron and put it on the back of your head and just left it there. And that's what it's like for me if it's untreated. Obviously, when it's like that, when you're in that type of pain, nothing can make it better. And I think that is what people need to understand. It doesn't matter if you take different medications, if you do different therapies and whatnot. It doesn't go down. It doesn't get better unless you really, really are aggressive with it. I started ketamine in 2015 because I felt like I had tried everything. And I felt like if I didn't try it, then I was just going to lose everything that mattered.
How difficult was it to find someone first to diagnose it and then to suggest this ketamine treatment?
Yes, so getting diagnosed is always difficult because I think especially for women, and I know that Dr. Chopra spoke about this with Maya, in Maya's trial, that a lot of times women are told that we are making it up, that we're being anxious, that we're catastrophizing, that they're not taking it seriously. And then it's about finding a doctor that actually knows about it, because you're looking at 300,000 people that have this condition. And so there are just a lot of doctors that just don't know about it at all. I was able to get it fairly quickly, a couple of weeks in, or I should say a couple of months into when I really got bad off with my CRPS, but it wasn't the right dosage. It wasn't the right protocol for me. And so, I've had various different protocols. I've had various different types of ketamine. Most recently, I'm an inpatient type program that I go to for, 5 days of like continuous infusion, which is different from Maya's, by the way. But that gives me just huge amounts of relief where I can live normally. But you have to fight like, you never stop fighting like hell, because if it's not the healthcare system, not the hospital, then it is the insurance company. It is, it's a money thing. It's all those things all put together.
So have you had situations, and in my situation, it seems they went to Johns Hopkins, this is the allegation, and like they didn't understand it, they didn't want to hear it, and as soon as they heard the word ketamine, they're like, oh, this mother must be torturing her child. She has no idea what you're doing. Did you run into any of that pushback from doctors? And do you still run into any of that? Do you have to switch doctors? Do you have to explain and re-explain what you're going through and what the treatment is?
Yes, so I have amazing doctors right now, but I can relate to having probably seen dozens upon dozens of doctors. I've had my own mother dismissed. I've had my own friends dismissed by doctors and told, that, she's not really feeling this bad and whatnot, or we're not going to explain this to you. That's my mom there, who just is a great, wonderful person. And it's something that, it impacts the whole family. Everyone is involved in it. All your friends are involved in it and whatnot. And it is really hard. It is really, really hard to get that. And one thing that I really hope that this brings, the silver lining of it all, is just awareness. Honestly, just awareness of this condition, and there are things that can be done. And even at Johns Hopkins, even though maybe Johns Hopkins Children's was not aware of CRPS, I know that Johns Hopkins in Baltimore is aware of this condition. But in healthcare, we have these silos where the left hand doesn't talk to the right. And so it's about like stopping and saying, what if I'm wrong? Because if I'm wrong, I am not the one who has to live with these consequences next day, or the day after that, or the day after that has to live with those consequences.
And finally, Lindsay, what if someone is suffering from this? What can they do? What can their family do to help? What advice would you give?
I think that the first thing is just to stop and be like, you're not going crazy, and it does feel like you're being burned alive. And so if you have these type of symptoms where it's not explainable by other things, where you either had like an event or an injury that could have caused it, to just stop and say, could this be it? We are seeing, by the way, that ketamine is getting to be more and more in the news and more aware for mental health. But for CRPS, we're still the ones where I hope we're not forgotten in all this. These companies are spouting up and whatnot for mental health, but I hope that for CRPS, that ketamine is not forgotten for us. And then also, I want to say that the federal government has the ability to really make a difference in this situation. I have done some advocacy work on a federal level. I have literally walked into my senator's office and said, I am not leaving until you help me, and here is why. And the government can decide tomorrow to start researching this condition, because we desperately need more research done. We desperately need more of these ketamine dosages and more of these ketamine protocols, worked on and researched to help people like me, to help people like Maya, so they don't have to go through it again. And the federal government can put NIH dollars to it. People can give money towards this. And so that can be approved, and so it can be that you can get care in this country and it can be paid for by insurance, versus having to go to Mexico, or versus having it be where people are like, well, I don't know what this is, I don't know what to do about it, and we can't get this paid for by your insurance company, so you just have to suffer.
Lindsay, we wish you the best, and I hope you continue to feel, it looks like you feel fine tonight, so hopefully every day is like that. Thank you so much.
I just want to say one thing before I go.
Absolutely.
This is the suicide disease, what is known as, between 50 and 75% of patients struggle with that. And I just want to say to people that there is hope to people with what they're going through right now. And if you had told me a number of years ago that I would be where I am now, I would not have believed you. I wake up every day thankful. And I'm just asking, or just wanting people to know, just don't give up. and hopefully science will catch up. Hopefully insurance coverage will catch up. But keep fighting, because there is not one treatment that works for every single person. And it usually takes a bunch of different things working together, but you can have a life and you can fight.
Well, again, we wish you the best. Thanks so much, Lindsay, and great to see you.
Good to see you too, Benny.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to bring in some experts and talk about the hospital side of this argument and how do you act in the best interest of the child when you think the child's being abused, but there's the child is suffering. You have to separate the child from the family. I know it's tough. It's a complicated call to make, so we're bringing in the experts. Florida father accused of locking his son in a box in the garage with a bed, a bucket, and a camera.
He was locked in a room for hours at a time.
Police say this abuse went unnoticed for years.
There are ring videos that the state provided of the child lying. He faces up to 40 years.
I'm not sure they're going to be able to justify it. What's going on in this house?
The Boy in a Box trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
There was a concern that part of this child's condition was being fostered or encouraged by the mother. There was a concern that the mother was seeking out care that was too aggressive, that was dangerous, and would persist in doing so if she were permitted to do so. That's what got this ball rolling.
That's what got the ball rolling. And what got the ball rolling was that Maya's mom brought her to the hospital. She had pain all over, but Maya's mom wouldn't let doctors touch her because she knew the condition that she had, and she knew how painful all that touching would be, and she didn't want to start from ground zero. She knew and Maya was being treated for this, and then she talked about ketamine treatment, and that's when everyone was like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? But then you flash forward, months later, this child is separated from mother. How long does it take to investigate to figure out what's going on here? I don't understand that. So let's bring in some guests. Joining me now, member of the Munchausen by Proxy Committee and American Professional Society on the Abuse of Children, founder of Munchausen Support, Andrea Dunlop is with us. Andrea, I'm going to begin with you. So where is that line? Where is that line between a mother desperate for help for her child and a mother who is abusing her child? How difficult should that be for doctors to figure out?
Well, I think there's sort of a two-part answer to that question, because there is the immediate determination if a child is in imminent danger, right, which leads to something like an emergency shelter order, which is what Maya Kowalski was under following that Johns Hopkins admission. And it's worth noting that the court has already ruled that that was made in good faith, that call to DCF, and that they did have reason to believe she was in imminent danger. So there's that piece of it. And then there's the full investigation, which was ongoing at the time of Beata's death. So, Vinny, you asked, why does this take so long? I mean, these cases are unbelievably complicated. They involve reviewing tens of thousands of pages of medical records, looking through social media. I'm very familiar with these police investigations, and they are, just extremely complicated. And so I think, in the immediate hospitalization, you mentioned the ketamine. There was that, yes. It was also, has been brought up a few times that this was a massive dosage that she was asking for. And it was also some of the comments that Beata made while she was in the hospital. She was talking about Maya's mortality. And she said things along the lines of, if you don't give me this treatment that I'm asking for, I might as well just seek out hospice care so that Maya can finally die. She doesn't want to live like this anymore. And so I think in looking at it that way, it wasn't a simple request for a medication. It was
no, there's
really
nothing simple about it. But it seems like there's a level of desperation for a mother that's been through all of this and knows what's wrong. And I think people need to listen as well. We've got another guest with us, a child abuse expert, faculty member at Florida State University, my son's alma mater, and author of Broken, Transforming Child Protective Services. Dr. Jessica Price is with us. Dr. Price, great to see you. This is always a fine line. The legal standard for separating a child from their family is best interest of the child, right? And we always kind of lean towards keeping children with their parents, right? I mean, that's kind of what we want. That's the goal. That's the goal of all of this once you get into court, if it's possible, if it's plausible. So what are your thoughts about how long it takes and taking a child who is suffering at the time, by the way, and they're putting him in contact with the doctor who treated him. And maybe the folks at that hospital didn't understand CRPS and didn't understand ketamine treatment. So at what point does the fact that a hospital doesn't understand everything but turns around and says, no, we need to investigate this family? That's the part I'm having trouble with, because it's their own lack of understanding that caused them to have to call child services here.
Right. Thank you so much for having me, Vinny.
That was a long question, but just answer whatever you want. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, so I'll add by saying that it's such a disturbing case, right? Everybody that's watched that documentary or read anything about this case, it's so hard to fathom this happening. And what I'll say is, as a former caseworker, you have to make some tough calls, right? There are some tough calls, but what I believe CPS fails to do is considering these bonds between kids and their parents as sacred. So even if, and based on what I know, I believe the hospital probably was well-intentioned when they reported this case, but they didn't consider the connection between Maya and her mother as sacred, because there is no reason why a visitation was halted. There's no reason why they weren't able to cultivate their connection during that time. And I believe, based on what I've read and seen, that was a big part. They alienated this child from her family. So it's trauma on top of trauma. If you have to make a tough call, how do you assuage the trauma that you're already making in the lives of these kids?
So Andrea, in trying, and they accused her of this. We heard it in their opening statement as well, that there was suspicions about this Munchausen by proxy. Okay, there's suspicions, but at what point, and what's the presumption here? Because my guess is when a doctor or a nurse, a medical professional says something, it has some weight. And it kind of puts a presumption and a filter on everything that's happening, rather than like when we go into a criminal courtroom, someone is presumed innocent. It almost seems like you have to prove that you're not. And it's just based upon a suspicion from a hospital.
Well, it's not really. I mean, they did bring in an expert, Dr. Sally Smith, who worked for DCF and Suncoast, did come in to make an initial report. And there were many, many doctors within the hospital that were concerned. And there were previous concerns from previous hospitals. So I think it's really important that people understand that this was not based on nothing. And, you know, some of the issues you're talking about here have to do with DCF and in terms of the no contact order. So I think people really need to zoom out a little bit and remember that this case has huge implications in terms of possibly having a chilling effect on doctors reporting suspicions. And again, the court has ruled that this report was made in good faith and that there was reason to believe that Maya was in imminent danger if she was allowed to leave with her parents. And that's a decision that was made by the courts.
Yeah, but when the courts make the decisions, we know that they're listening to the caseworker and the doctors, right, Dr. Price?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just finished writing a book, and every case in this book that I talk about involved a physician doing something exactly like what Dr. Sally Smith did. They made a determination in good faith, and it created the most awful sort of outcome. So again, I agree that these doctors shouldn't be shackled when they're trying to do what's right, but we have to figure out a way to be more collaborative when it comes to separating families and alienating children. It's creating deleterious outcomes for families, particularly families that are on the margins of society.
And I think you also have to understand the emotions of a parent who has a child who is suffering the most painful condition known to mankind, which is this CRPS. I just spoke to someone who is suffering from that, and the way she described it. And this little girl had it all over her body, and her mom knew that. And a parent is going to get emotional when they can't get the suffering alleviated. And that's what's got to happen on the other end. And I will say this as a lawyer, sometimes lawyers and doctors, we don't mix well. I'm a diabetic. I say it every time. I've said it twice already on this show. I have amazing doctors, but I've run into doctors who don't listen because they're doctors and they're smarter than all of us. And they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. I'll give you the last word, Andrea.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry to interrupt there. Vinny, yeah, your point is well taken. I think what I really want people to understand here is that there are risks both ways. You know, everything you said about separating families, that being a really serious thing, that taking an emotional toll on the family, that is all. I could not agree more. But I think people need to remember the possible outcome if doctors don't report. Mm-hmm. There was a case in Colorado, the case of Olivia Gant. The hospital had suspicions about this same kind of abuse, about medical child abuse. They did not report. She was released to the custody of her mother, and she died. She starved in hospice care that she did not need to be in. So I think people really need to remember the stakes on both sides and to keep in mind, you know, the broader scope and the effect that this case is going to have.
Absolutely. And we also should remove any financial incentive that is given to any agency for removing a child from their family. Because I saw that in a case out in California. They adopted out twins out of Cal City, California. Financial incentive to do that by the county, and guess what? Those two children were murdered by the adoptive parents. So it's a fine line. I understand it 1,000%. We cover both ends and see it here on Court TV, unfortunately. Andrea Dunlop, you're a great, great advocate. Thank you so much. Dr. Jessica Price, fantastic as well. Important book that you wrote.